All right, welcome back. It is Q3, week 8, day 1. Today we're going to start going over some of the different problems we made when we actually laid out our UV, and we're going to sort of get started on creating our diffuse map. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about it. So last time we sliced our UV up, we relaxed all of the pieces, and then we laid it out in the UV area to make sure that there was enough space for everything that we need. We knew that the face was going to be more important than something like the pants, so relatively speaking, you'll see that the checker map on the pants is significantly bigger than it is on the face. That means the face has more texture density than the pants themselves. That's going to be really important later on. Other things like the shoes, there's not a whole lot of detail that we care too much about the shoes. We assume that people aren't going to be staring at shoes very often, so that sort of stuff kind of gets a lot less of the total real estate. Because as you recall, the diffuse map itself, the square, it can be 2048 pixels or it could be 4 pixels. So what really matters is how much of the percentage we are giving to each individual section. So today we're going to go back and fix some of the stuff that I found problematic, like this section right here in the thumb. When I was building this series of videos, I realized that there were a bunch of little mistakes that I think we can make things better before we get into creating our diffuse map. All right, so we're going to relay out some of this stuff. We're going to adjust this thumb problem because holy moly, did I have a difficult time getting that little piece to look good. And we're basically going to put some other things together, like we're going to stitch the neck back to the head. We're going to shift some stuff around, and then we're going to just paint in some generic colors. So with that said, let's go ahead, and then tomorrow we'll take some silly pictures, and then we'll make some textures. So let's get into it. So we left off here. If we hit M for material, I'm going to get my checker map and drop it on there just to see what we're dealing with. Now, what I found this time as I was starting to go through this, because I'm not much of a 2D person. I've done a lot of the 3D work, but only recently have I started trying to manipulate the images. So for here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually evaluate some of our seams. Like this seam here where the shoulder goes into the sleeve here, we're going to rebuild that a little bit. We're also going to change this section right here, in particular this seam right here. Before I had this laid out slightly differently, and we're going to talk about why that's a problem, and man, was it a huge problem. Also, where the neck meets the head, that's going to need to be rebuilt, because I found this section here was really difficult when I was building my diffuse map to make it look good and make it look like there's no obvious seam there. We're going to do that, and mostly it's going to make our life as a 2D artist a lot easier, which isn't always our focus, but in this point it's going to be. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So we've got our checker map on, but I really don't need that right now. So I'm going to hit M for material, and then I'm going to drag this over onto my object. So I've just got a gray, generic gray material. Now, first things first, I'm going to reset all my transforms because that's great to do in case it's been a while. And then I'm going to collapse our stack. So collapse all, yes. So I've just reset all my transforms and I've collapsed my stack. Now I'm going to click on my modifier and type in UN, which will bring me down to Unwrap UV and hit enter. And then it'll think about it for a second and bring it up. Now you can see where our seams are currently. Now, one of the things that we really want to make sure of is we want to make sure that this seam here, we're going to start with our hands. This seam here, this material, I'm going to click on polygon here or hit number 3. We're going to make sure this seam here is smooth all the way through here. I want a seam that runs along my thumb and then across the inside part of my thumb through here, and then all the way down here. Okay, before I had this seam so it like sort of chopped in here and it came out through here, and it was like just a bunch of weird places. So what you're really going to want to do is sort of take the seams that you have and make sure that they make a lot of sense. Now, I've already sort of done it in this version of the file. So your file is going to be slightly different than mine. We've talked about that before. So I'm going to select my element UV toggle, which is down here. I'm going to select my hand. Now this is roughly how your hand is set up already. What you probably have is an extra set or an extra chunk out of your hand on this side. Now, if you built your hand exactly like mine, which is probably unlikely, but if you did, you may have to go in and rebuild or at least adjust your topology. All right, that means you may have to go back into editable poly and try and get an even line that runs right along the side of your hand, all the way through there. All right, now you can attach along the thumb if you like, or like I did, I attached along the pinky, or on the pinky line, because the pinky is a little less weird than the thumb. The pinky is kind of a straight shot out of the hand, whereas the thumb comes out at an angle. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you've got a even line that runs through there. So this edge should sort of cut the difference between the top of your arm and the bottom of your arm. Now that's going to be really important, because if you look at your hand, go ahead and look down at your hand right now. Pay attention to the way your hand transitions. The skin on the top of your hand is different than the skin on the palm of your hand. The palm of your hand is probably much more delicate in a way, a lot more supple. It's a lot less rough, and it's probably a lot less hairy if you're anything like me. So because of that, you're going to want to make sure that you're going to have this smooth edge going through it. Now, once you have that edge, you should be able to open up your UV editor and do the exact same process we did last week. You're going to make sure that you've got one edge set and the other edge set, and then you're going to stitch them together just like this. Okay? Now, another thing that will make your life a lot more a lot easier when it comes down to the next video is making sure that the line that you use for your pinky is relatively straight. Now we're gonna sort of make sure that this runs evenly. I'm gonna grab the edge actually, and I'm gonna double click this center line. Now, if I snap this to center like this, and then I move it over, that's going to be a little harsh. I don't think that's really a great idea, but the fact that it's extremely harsh like that could make it functionally okay. Now, one thing that I would suggest is oftentimes I like to grab vertices themselves and go to Tools and hit Relax and grab just the vertices I want, and then I can relax those individual ones. For instance, these, I want all of these to maybe relax, maybe not you, relax a little bit around what I've already set. So I want all of these, but not these, to relax. So I can go into Poly Angles and hit Relax, and that sort of straightens out what I have over here. I can do the same thing with any of them. I just have to be sort of careful because, oops, Z. I hit Z for zoom. Because I want to make sure that I don't have too much crazy distortion in my material. So now I'm going to hit M, wait for material to come up. There it goes. And I'm going to grab this and drag it onto here. Oh, look at that. Now my hands are going to be somewhat distorted. Once again, I'm okay with that as long as the material is going to be easy to work with. Skin itself isn't exactly stripy, so generally if there's a little distortion, we can deal with that. It's better to have a little bit of distortion and no seams than it is to have a crazy seam running through everything. Now, when we get to the diffuse creation, when we make our meat suit, we will talk about how to eliminate some of these seams as best we can. But for now, we're just going to do our best to make sure the checkers are okay. A little distortion like that can be a problem. We can grab these like this, maybe all of those. Go into your UV editor. Once it opens up, my computer has been chugging recently. Need to clean it out. And then I can take all of these. Now I can adjust these without adjusting the others by once again going Tools, Relax. Let's go Poly and do that. Now that sort of smooths everything out. I can do that without adjusting my center line too much. And you can do it with vertices as well if you want. You can, that way you've got things that are better than others. Now I can sort of minimize that. You can see my checkers are slightly better, maybe a little wobbly, but you get the point there. All right. Now another thing I noticed as I was building my model is there was a couple things that I screwed up. Number one, my belt buckle somehow got unwelded, so I rebuilt that and laid that out. If you don't have a belt buckle, then you don't have anything to worry about it. If you do, then you have to fix it. So once you've got that straight line and you've got a nice smooth edge running all the way around, you can set that back in and call that a day. Now the next thing we're going to work on is over here, the face and the neck. Now you've probably done similar things. You've cut your face off. That's good. You cut your neck off and you have them separated. We are going to connect them back together. Now this probably means we're going to have to rearrange a whole bunch of other stuff, like our mouth and our nostril. Actually, I'm going to put the nostril back in too because I had more problems than that's worth. Number one, that nostril is going to be moderately difficult to work with on its own, and we can get a. I'm holding control, by the way, so it smoothly resizes. And I'm going to grab these edges here. I'm basically going to grab all of that, and I'm going to go from red to blue. Just stitch it right back. And this doesn't really matter. Where'd it go? Let me get you. I don't know. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Going crazy on me. I'm going to hold. I thought I had Control. Or Alt. I had Alt. Okay. I'm going to try and. Oh, I know why I keep grabbing that. Silly. Alright, so I'm going to double click that and see if I can figure out which one I can grab just to stitch that back together. Because I want to get rid of that issue. Stitch those together and see how it looks. Okay, now once again, this is my nostril itself, which is awesome, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to grab the central vert, and I can do this in the other viewport too. So if I want to grab just that central nostril up there, I can grab it there. Ooh, okay, printer. So I can grab that central nostril and I can expand it out like that, and then I can do the same thing. Tools, Relax, Poly, Start, and that sort of builds it back out. And I can do that again. I can grow it a little more and Start, Relax, and that just sort of smooths all that out. Now once again, I don't really care too much about how great that looks. I'd prefer it to be sort of small-ish so I can get out of the way. I'm going to also bring it down a little bit further through there, and then just grab that final one and then relax it, see if it moves at all. It doesn't. Alright, cool. Once again, save your work a lot when you are working with the UV modifier front view. There we go. Because it crashes. Like the UV modifier crashes more than any other tool that I use in 3D Studio. So I would suggest you're constantly saving. Now for the neck. To adjust the neck, we're going to have to make it significantly bigger because realistically it is significantly bigger than everything else we're working with here today. And then I'm going to sort of resize it. And what I want to do is I want to get this close to where it needs to be and then stitch what I can. So this should stitch. Whoop, I got that set again. Okay, so I should be able to double click that. And then I'm just going to stitch to average. And that's going to be enough. Alright. Once again, if I grab most of this stuff and then most of this. And then some of that. Let's see. Some of this. And I can relax that. Tools. Relax. Poly. There. Now, I'm not really concerned if it doesn't line up perfectly because I'm not going to worry too much about that. Because the way it's going to work, it's automatically going to mirror across no matter where this edge is. So this was something that we tried to keep consistent, but this I don't care too much about. I did notice that that one got left off, so I'm going to start relax again and make sure that's good. All right, cool. Those look weird. Ugh, they're just bad. Okay. All right. Anyway, that's basically done. Now, what this does is it does make my neck take up way more space than it probably deserves. But at the end of the day, I think I'm okay with that. It's going to sort of take away from some of the resolution on my face. But realistically, I'd rather have that than try and deal with a seam problem. The seam problem that I was having before. That you never saw, but let me tell you, it's a pain. Now, this is my eyeball. That's going to have to go somewhere. You want that pretty high resolution too. The mouth can be extremely low because it's going to be basically a meaty, ugly thing, so it's not a big deal. So we can shrink that down. We can also relax that. Relax, poly. Start. Good enough. All right, cool. Once again, it doesn't matter too much. We're not even putting teeth in this guy, so it doesn't matter. All right, cool. So pants, I'm also going to shrink down a little bit. Next thing. So the next thing that sort of bothered me as I was working on the diffuse map is, let's go ahead and close this or minimize it, is the shirt. Now the shirt is actually okay. The seam that I have is basically, get the right tool. I'm getting the square tool here. This is my seam, which is not terrible, but it's also not great. I turned off ignored back facing there. But basically, this is not awful, but it's not great. Because I don't like the way it's going to sort of sit in the middle of the bicep, sort of like on the edge of the deltoid, and how that works. So I don't love that. I'd much rather the seam be sort of just like straight through here in general. Now I've got a couple options. Like the back of the shirt already has the seam kind of in an okay place if I do this. So I can do this, or I can just grab, go into the UV editor again, of course. I can just stitch it to the rest of the shirt. Okay, so currently the shirt is in multiple pieces, right? We've got the front of the shirt and the back of the shirt here, and then we've got, this is the front. So I'm grabbing full island, so I'm going to grab this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find where this stitch, where this breaks. And it looks like it breaks right there. So this is the front of the shirt. So I'm going to grab the front of the shirt, and I'm going to grab just that. All right, cool. So I've got just that section, and I'm going to break that. Now that is the front of the shirt, and I can just actually rotate that around so the top side is up, and then I'm going to move this over so that it's done. So that we are going to not have any more issues with this. So now I'm going to rotate that like this, and then I'm going to basically just stitch it together like I had before. Now this is going to be slightly weird through here, and that's going to be okay, because as I said before, a little bit of distortion is far more preferable than having things that are problematic when it comes to like the material itself. Now, once again, a lot of this comes from the fact that I was never much of a 2D artist before, and now I just want to make sure that you guys have a well-rounded experience here. So I'm going to take that and sort of move it in like that. So, like we said before, you're going to have some distortion through here. I think it's worth it. I think it's going to. I think it's going to be worth it. We can set these and grab these, and then sort of relax it through. Start relax. Here we go. Relax. All right, cool. We can try it. All right, cool. All right, that's not bad at all. I'm also not a huge fan of the way this particular that runs, but I think it'll be okay. All right, cool. So I should have decent checkers now. I've got obviously some stretching here. But like I said, the fact is I can now put a seam on here. Actually, let's just grab this whole thing and see how that looks if we relax it like that. It's not bad. I'll take it. So basically now I can set a sort of seam on my own. Like eventually I'll say, okay, I want the seam to run directly through this part of the shoulder, and then I can actually draw the seam in there, and then when we actually do the material, the texture material on there, I can adjust it. So it'll be just fine. Now you'll notice I was tweaking this back and forth. You can see you can really mess it up and stretch it out a lot. I was just looking to see if I could get the squares to stay where they look really good. And I guess they were kind of okay to begin with. So I want to move that back like this. Now, that means this is set. That's good. And now I'm going to do the same thing for the back. All right. Once again, I have to make sure that the back is the back, like as in the top is the top. I think that's the bottom, which is good, which means that stitches to there. So now I just got to position this in place, or at least roughly in place to that-ish. Notice that I try and make sure that each, like this is approximately the same size as that, this stitch is there, and then I can grab the island itself, get it as close as I can-ish, and then grab that edge. I'd have to deselect the group, and then I can stitch that together, average. Now I just hit the average button, so that gave me the average, and that should be good. Alright, I just lost power, but thank you to my battery. I should not have to restart this video. Yay! Alright, anyway, I'm going to relax this. Polygon, start relax. Sort of a weird looking shirt-ish, but that gives me a nice smooth edge here that I think will be fine. That's all from the turbo smoothing that I never got rid of, but it's too late. Too late now. It's too late, baby. Yeah, it's too late. All right, cool. The collar I'm going to leave off because it's sort of off on its own anyway, and I think it'll work best that way. And because of where I sliced it, the slicing on the collar works out well where it is. So I don't need to redo that. So now all I need to do is sort of repack everything. Oh, one more thing. I broke off the zipper area because we are going to need to put the zipper on. So I'm going to leave it broken for now. It'll make sense eventually. We basically have to take this section and then we're going to mirror it over and copy it. So this is going to have to be done last, after we actually take our model and work it. Also, another thing that I noticed that I probably could redo, since I'm in the mood of redoing things, my shoe's pretty good. The shoe's okay. It's not very shoe-like, but that's all right. This part of the bottom part of my shoe and the side part are all like in different spots. Also, the back is kind of square on its own. We'll just go ahead and leave it there. It's not going to be perfect, but I think it's going to be okay to leave it where it is. I was going to do it, but I think I'm not going to now. I think we'll be okay. All right, so now I just got to sort of repack everything in. So I'm going to actually take all of this out. Actually, I'll show you a little tool that's kind of neat. We can grab everything, and down here, these are custom packing options where it'll automatically pack everything in. Now, it packs it all together in a square, but it doesn't actually do a great job. It also does things according to what size they are, not what size they should be. So, some other things that I created eyelashes, which are right here, that I did not do earlier. You don't have to do those. I'll show you a new process, but basically all they are were planes that I warped to make them look like eyelashes, and they're right here. So I don't like the way that repacked it. We can try and repack it like that, but once again, it sort of redoes it in a way that's not great. I think I'm just going to try and rearrange the stuff that I have right now. So let's go ahead and take the front shirt. Yes, the front of the shirt, and move it over there. Now I'm going to grab islands here so that I'm not like constantly fighting with it. The front and back of the shirt are here, so that's pretty good for that. I want to keep all the meat together. That's going to be really, really important later. It's not 100% important as it is to make sure that we have everything else together, but it'll be helpful if we keep the things that are real meaty together. All right. So I don't think there's room. I mean, the ear needs to be relatively big so we get a good look at it. It's got to be high-ish resolution. The seam that runs along the back there is going to be hard to see anyway, so that's not going to be a big deal. The eyeball needs to be big, and the hands need to be relatively large. So I'm going to put that there. The shirt also needs to be large, and the hair needs to be large-ish. I bet I can re-angle that and fit that in better, like this. And I think I see a spot for my eyeball, too. Yep, eyeball can go right in there. Once again, I'm trying to keep all the meat together. We'll talk more about that in a minute. You want the eyeball to be big, 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 so that it's got a lot of good resolution in it. The shirt itself, let's see. This is going to be angled anyway, so maybe I can just do that. Ugh, I hate putting things at an angle because it's harder to work with when it comes to like adjusting things. But the fingers are already at an angle, so maybe I can get away with it here. I would make sure that your materials that are not meat are not diagonal. I would make sure that like things like your shirt in particular is set up so it's not diagonal, because that's going to be problematic. My eyelashes, I'm just going to tuck in a corner somewhere. They need to be big because when we're using a high resolution on them, but they don't need to be that big. Let's see. I'm going to take that shoe. Let's see if we can fit it down here. The shoe's going to be a problem either way, but I think it'll fit well here. That's kind of good. I can probably scoot that a bit like that. Good enough. I may have to shrink the pants some. I want to shrink those together so they all fit together. I'm going to bring the shoe part over here. The shoe's there. This is the bottom of the shoe. It can be extremely small. I mean, it depends how much shoe action you're going to be looking at the bottom of people's shoes. The belt needs to be relatively pretty small, so that's not a big deal. And then this is the mouth. So I'm going to put that in here somewhere. I could probably tuck that. I might even be able to tuck that over there. I don't really care which way it is since we're not doing much on the mouth there, but I'm going to put that here and realign it like that. Okay, we need to make room for the shirt. The belt, I'm gonna move over here. So the belt's now down here. And this belt buckle can go here. We want to make sure there's a decent space for the belt buckle. Now all we got to do is fit in our shirt. Let's go ahead and take this piece. Now once again, we're just gonna have to probably deal with shrinking it some, but I would make sure that both sides of the shirt are equal. So we want to make sure that they are equal in density. All right. So even if they're not 100% together, they need to be equal in density. So I'm going to move this up here, and I'm going to move this. I wonder if I could flip it. I could probably flip one. I'm going to take one and flip it horizontally, just because I'm kind of hurting for space, and because it at least is still up and down, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. I think I'm going to shrink my hair a little bit, and then I'm going to I can actually adjust the shirts to make them closer together. Theoretically, I could overlap them some, and that would be okay. But I'm kind of hesitant to do that. All right, where's the back? So now I'm going to check where this is exactly. If that's the front, that's, oops, I want just the, so that's there. This is underneath. So that part is this section here is way less important because it's going to be underneath. So I can actually grab this edge here and I can shrink it significantly and get away with that, because underneath no one's going to see that. No one's going to see that texture. So if I've squeezed it or really squeezed it down a lot, it's not going to be that big of a deal. All right. So now all I need to do is sort of rebuild or reset that. I wonder if I can see. Now I've got a lot of weird space in the middle, which is frustrating. And you really don't even need to watch this section anymore because it's all different. Your pieces are going to be slightly different. You can't expect that every piece is going to be the same, or that your layout is going to be identical to mine. So this section here, you can actually, I'm going to move that up. I'm going to move. Oops, I had two of them because I've got two eyelashes up and top and bottom. So notice I'm trying to keep this part together. I can flip this. It'll be inverted. That would be a problem. No, you're right. It'll be a problem. I shouldn't do that. I won't. But I'm keeping the shirt pieces all together, so that's fine. So then the basic color is going to be the same. I'm going to take, maybe I can take the belt and replace that somewhere else. Yeah, I'm going to rotate that. Take the shoe, maybe put it up here. Take more shoe bits and put them. I can take this section here and move it up here, rotate it. I want to rotate that as well. Now that's the actual side of the shoe. The belt here is all, oops. The belt here should probably move down. Like I said before, it's a better idea to keep all of your shoe pieces together, if possible. Let's take you and move you over there. Once again, you just got to sort of find where pieces fit. I do think I can increase the size of my hands now. I think I should be able to maybe adjust that. I'm holding control so that when I scale it, it scales evenly. That way it's organized and not a mess. All right, great. Cool. That's going to be good enough, I think. The eyelashes I'm going to put over here. There we go. So once the eyelashes are set in one spot, I can sort of tuck them down and they're good. So now all of these pieces are set. Great. Next. Okay, we're going to do the colors. Now, as you know, we have all of our pieces. Now we just got to export it out. So we go to Tools, Render UVW Template. I always go higher resolution than I plan to use. So I probably would use a 1024 by 1024 on a character. As technology moves on, that will seem way too low, but currently that's great. So instead of using 1024, I would do 2048 by 2048 by 2048. 2048, because that's about twice as large as I plan on using. And that would be good because it sort of future-proofs our work for today. Now this is Q3 week 8 day 1. This is my PNG, and I'm going to call this self-portrait. Wow, that's not self-portrait. All right, and then it's a UV underscore UV, and it's going to be a PNG. And we're going to save that. All right, so that's done. We're going to click OK. Great. Now that's going to be done. Now I'm going to open up Photoshop, and it's open because I had it open in the background. I got to get my file. I'm going to save my work so that we have it later. Now I've got to go into get that folder open. There we are. Self-portrait UV, drag it in. Now remember, if you just drag it in, it automatically sets everything to the right size. So now my resolution and everything is set to the proper size. So if I go to canvas size, it should be 2048 by 2048, which is 12 megs, which is pretty big, but you know, it is what it is. I'm also going to add another material, another layer, and I'm going to use a paint bucket and just throw a black down so we can see it. It looks like not quite black, but whatever, who cares. All right, good enough. So that is now there, easier to see. Okay, I could have probably made this bigger, and that's probably not. Actually, I also forgot to copy that over. So let's save that, or not save it, but go back. Cool. Close that. Front view, we are going to collapse our stack. Collapse all. Yes. And now I'm going to, you can copy it over like this. Copy and click OK. And then you can stitch that together. You can attach and stitch, or we're going to try something slightly new. Go to the symmetry modifier. Now, once again, the symmetry modifier works on the plane that you're working on. Now, initially mine was set and I couldn't see anything, but if I hit the flip and I'm mirroring along X, it seems to be working perfect. Now I'm going to weld that seam, and I'm also going to collapse that stack. Collapse all. Yes, so now the entire object has been collapsed. I can add a UV modifier, or Unwrap UV, excuse me. So now I go to the UV editor, and now I've got the two even pieces on top of each other. Okay, now I did notice last time that we have a slight issue. I think that I can get this over here, and as long as I move everything together, I can still adjust the UV because I haven't exported it out yet. So I can do a lot of like tweaking here if I want, as long as I keep in mind what I'm doing and make sure that I'm not screwing anything up or going out of the boundaries, which is really bad. What that actually does was it will make it so it pops on the other side, which will be problematic. Okay, so here is our current issue. I've got the zipper, which is the crotch area. The zipper is going to be different from left to right because the way your pants attach together. If you got like sweatpants or something on, you don't have to do this. But since I do, I'm going to go ahead and go through this process. And this would work the same for everybody either way. So I'm going to want to make sure I'm going to stitch this together. So I'm going to stitch that to that. Then I'm going to grab this full object here, grab all of it. And I'm going to relax it. Tools, relax, poly, start, done. Now, this whole section, I think, is flipped. Select inverted. Everything's inverted. Okay, let's flip that. No. Okay. Oh no, not everything's inverted, but this is now good. So I wasn't thinking. All right, so now I can stitch some of this down. And that's kind of what I want to do. Actually, it would probably be best if I stitch it first. Well, here's what I plan on doing. I will take... I'm going to undo, actually, and go back to where I was. Come on. Undo. Okay. Where were we? All right, cool. So... I'm going to undo all the way back to where I was, and I'm going to take these verts here, and then I'm going to move them. I'm going to take this whole section, actually, I'm going to flip it. Yes. Flip. All right, cool. Now, with that flipped, I can take this and align these together. Now, basically, what I'm doing is I'm doing sort of like a quick and dirty way to align these edges, so that they will align with the other pieces. And I gotta make sure I don't grab all of them. The reason I'm doing this is because I really want I want them to line up, but I don't want to have a seam. So I'm just gonna sort of put these where they should be. Oh, come on. I zoomed out weirdly. I'm gonna put these where I want them to be, like that, and like this. And then like this. Alright, and now I'm going to actually align them together. So I have a seam, but I don't have a seam. It's going to look like a seam, but it's not really a seam. because what I'm doing is I'm making it think, or basically aligning them so closely together that they're set up so they are applied. No. Okay. All right, good. So now I've got this one. So what I've done is I've aligned them together. Now I'm going to flip this one. All right. I don't really know which one it is, and it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to align this to itself. All right. And now I'm going to take these pieces and I'm going to stitch those together as well. So these two are going, or actually there's a bunch of them here. They're all going to go together. These are going to go together. These are going to go, and the closer they are, the better, because what I'm doing is I'm sort of making a unofficial stitching system here, or unofficial edge, that now I've got a full crotch line that is perfectly aligned to itself. I could, now that they're aligned together, I should probably be able to double click and then weld them, and then they're actually welded. Now this, if I stitch that, it may not work properly. But one of these edges is not going to stitch anyway. So to have this edge here is fine. Okay? Because now what we've got is we've got two different sides, and you'll be able to see we've got a weird sort of edge around the crotch area, which will be great for our zipper. So once again, now this whole thing is properly laid out. I also used this a little more efficiently. I'm going to make that's the inside part of the pants. I'm going to try and make that a little bigger. I'm also going to rotate it. I don't really care too much about it, but if we got this space, might as well use it. And that is basically good. I wonder if I can make that a little bit bigger now. I think I can. I think I can. Get all that. What you want is you want as much of this functionally used as possible. Like the more detail you have, the better it's going to look. Like at the end of the day, that's really what we want. We just want it to be as useful, you know, as good as we can make it, as attractive as we can make it. I just realized that this is the front. And if I'm going to have this flipped, I would rather have the backside flipped, you know, because the front's going to have buttons and yada yada yada. So I'm going to just flip it like that. That way, the front of the shirt is on the top, and the back of the shirt is way less important. I got to make sure I leave at least a decent amount between these pieces, so that I don't have issues with things overlapping. Like currently I have my eyeball problem where I can't see. Make sure you grab both pieces if you're going to do flipping and adjustments like that. I really want more space for my eyeball, but I don't think I'm going to get it. So I'm going to just shrink it down. I'm going to hold control, and my eyeball is going to go in here. It's probably one thing I could do to make it better is I could take this outside ring, because this is the outside ring of the eye and the less important part. I could cheat and shrink this in. If I shrink this in, I will be using less of my overall space. Let's see. Come on. I think what I should do is actually. How about this? This would work better. I'll double click this ring, and then hold control. Uh-oh. Oh, it just got weird on me. Let's see if I can do this. I'll grab those. Oh, it's because I've got that. Okay, so I've grabbed those. I'm going to use this tool down here. It's called ring selection right there. Nope, that's my ring. Or that's my, there we go. I'll take this tool, and now I'm going to hold. I guess I'll just shrink it like that, and then I'll realign it like this. So what I'm doing is I'm basically cheating by making the outside much smaller than it probably should be, because most of my detail I want around my pupil anyway. So by doing that, I can sort of get away with making the outside, which will be like the mostly hidden by the rest of my face, make that a little bit better. All right, cool. All right, good. All right, cool. So this is done. Select actually tools, render UV template. Once again, 2048 by 2048. Render. Cool. All right. Now, the stuff we've done today so far is going to make our life a lot easier when it comes to actually doing stuff later. Realistically, it would have been better to just make sure I did it right the first time. But without a whole lot of experience with doing the 2D, I think the problem here is that I just wasn't thinking about how that would work from a 2D artist standpoint. So that's kind of the problem. Okay, so this I'm going to delete. No, I'm not going to save it. I'm going to open up that folder again and do the same thing we did before. I'm going to drag in my self-portrait UV. I just take it and drag it. Now it should have the new stuff in it. Once again, I can call this UV. I'm going to create a new layer that's down here. All right, and then I'm going to grab my paint bucket, drag it. Now it's going to cover it unless I move it underneath. Now you should have it. You can see my zippers set, so that's good. So now we're basically ready to go. The next thing we're going to do in tomorrow's video is we're actually going to start laying things out and coloring them out. We're going to take close-up pictures of things like the shirt and the neck and, like, well, not so much dirt, but we're going to take the eyeball stuff and we're going to start laying that all out. All right, so currently, once you have this in, you're kind of good to go. All right, so we are going to stop here and go. I'm going to save this, save as. I'm going to call it self-portrait DM. Well, I'm going to call it A because it's my second time through it. Hit save. So tomorrow I'm going to start with DMA, and then we'll see you tomorrow. So once again, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments. It pops up on my phone. I try and get to those right away. It makes it really easy. And I think that's it. I will see you tomorrow.